which holds greater significance? A contented family life or transient romantic entanglements? What drives individuals to engage in infidelity instead of remaining loyal to their spouse? Allow me to share a narrative from which we may glean insights. I cannot assert that I am an ideal husband, as my profession often imposes strain on my life, and there are moments when I return home less than jovial. Regardless, we enjoy a comfortable lifestyle, a stunning house, 2 automobiles, and a plethora of luxurious items in my wife's wardrobe, not to mention our 8-year-old daughter Jennifer, who is blessed with an abundance of costly toys. In essence, I consider myself a humble individual focused solely on my family, striving diligently for their contentment. Linda and I have been joyously married for close to 12 years, and our marriage has been, for the most part, a harmonious voyage. Recently, there's been an evolution in our dynamic that left me puzzled. Over the last few months, I observed a transformation in Linda's attitude towards me. She appeared distant and displayed signs of emotional detachment at times, criticizing my actions or words, which was unlike her usual self. Concerned, I initiated a discussion about it. I questioned if she held a grudge against me for some unspecified reason, but as is customary with women, she dismissed any misconduct and claimed that nothing catastrophic was transpiring. She simply felt fatigued or had a difficult day. To begin with, I chose to give her space to understand the source of her distress. Regrettably, her aloof demeanor grew increasingly exhausting and irritating over time. Moreover, as any married couple can attest, unresolved issues within a relationship tend to seep into the bedroom, adding to the existing complexities. In our relationship, I've consistently aimed to keep a touch of spontaneity and passion alive. As a romantic individual, I'd often express my love by presenting flowers after work, which had previously sparked intimacy and desire. However, lately, these gestures have been returned with merely gratitude and a casual kiss. It seems that rather than appreciating my affectionate actions, she sees them as feeble attempts to make up for past errors. For weeks, Linda avoided intimacy, and when I tried to initiate it, her responses ranged from disinterest to the familiar excuse of a headache. On rare instances where she gave in, she was passive, letting me take control. Over time, I found myself growing detached emotionally from these encounters. Upon arriving home, I prioritized bonding with my daughter and intentionally disregarded my wife. Unsurprisingly, this only escalated the predicament. Desperate, I spent every spare moment at work contemplating the situation. I recalled the initial incident vividly, seeking any actions of mine that could have influenced Linda's demeanor. My recollections were futile. My thoughts cycled through various scenarios, hoping to uncover a causal link. When another concerning factor in Linda's behavior surfaced, I entertained an alarming hypothesis. Could my wife be having an affair? Despite my constant reassurances that she would never breach our bond, I couldn't ignore some peculiar discrepancies. It appeared as if a critical piece of the puzzle was absent. Intrigue overcame me concerning Linda, a potential love interest, despite my efforts to dismiss it. I delved into research, scrutinizing signs and indicators that needed attention. Alterations in behavior, attire, daily schedule, and comparable cues. Frankly, I haven't noticed any stylish outfits on Linda or observed an increase in her attractiveness. My encounters with her are confined to my return from work, so it's uncertain how she dresses during the day. Moreover, I am unaware of her daily routine altogether. She appears rushed at all times, yet the purpose of this haste still eludes me. However, when considering her behavior, certain signs seem strangely familiar. Although I pondered hiring a private investigator, I lacked concrete evidence, with only suspicions and no solid grounds for employing one. Instead, I embarked on my own investigation. Initially, I began unexpectedly phoning home during work hours in an attempt to surprise my partner. However, the outcome remained unclear as she wasn't always home. To gather additional proof, I procured an antique surveillance camera and covertly placed it under the garage eaves for concealment. Linked to a tape recorder camouflaged among paint cans on the rear shelf, I aimed to document any suspicious vehicles nearing our residence. However, my efforts were thwarted due to another unfolding event in this narrative. Recently, there have been no questionable occurrences for a fortnight. On various occasions, I noticed my wife exiting the house, but her brief absences didn't provide enough evidence of something untoward. If her boyfriend wasn't capable of accomplishing tasks in mere seconds, it might have been an inconsequential chore she deemed unworthy of mention to me. Regardless, this didn't constitute definitive evidence of any infidelities within our relationship. As time passed and no warning signs or tangible proof surfaced, my doubts grew stronger as her spirits sank lower and our intimate moments dwindled. I became agitated. Our 12th wedding anniversary was fast approaching, and I viewed it as an opportunity to shake up the routine. Following a lengthy hiatus, the notion of going out and enjoying ourselves crossed my mind. Perhaps this could reignite the passion in our marriage. Naturally, I was eager to give it a try. To guarantee undisturbed happiness, we decided that Jennifer would stay with my parents overnight. I reserved a table at Plato's restaurant, a place dear to Linda's heart. Accompanied by the maitre d', we were led to our table, prompting Linda to encircle my arm, yearning to resurrect the enchantment of yesteryears. Yet, an unease hung in the air, subtly perceptible tension. In quest for comfort, we opted to order a bottle of wine. Gradually, I detected a familiar quirk in Linda's actions. With each sip, she mirrored the radiant individual I had fallen in love with. Our dialogue flowed fluidly and spontaneously, brimming with mirth and banter. As our meal drew to a close, it was evident that my wonderful spouse yearned for an evening devoid of worries. Despite my initial inclination to explore the newly inaugurated dance club, Linda succeeded in persuading me to remain at our customary haunt. It was a tranquil setting illuminated by inviting and alluring lighting, adorned with a captivating dance floor, catering to an older demographic. The music was suitable for dancing, making it simpler for Linda to sway my decision. Skilled on the dance floor, it was my dancing talent that drew Linda and me together. Shared passion for dancing forms a crucial part of our relationship. Seeking a private corner, we found a snug table for two, enjoying drinks amidst the lively ambience. Inspired, we chose to express dance as more than mere two-step moves, stirring nostalgia for cherished moments of joy shared between us. After close to an hour of exhilarating dancing, tiredness eventually crept in, compelling us to return to our table for a well-deserved break. As I slumped into my chair, Linda sipped her wine elegantly before gracefully excusing herself and departing to the restroom. I watched, awaiting a sensual treat, picturing the poise of an elegant couple swaying in rhythm. Glancing away from my wife's captivating elegance, it became apparent that she was drawing more than mere interest. A strikingly dashing man occupied a discreet corner table across the dance floor, his gaze fixed intently on Linda's actions. For a moment, I pondered if there might be some connection between them, as her brief glance in his direction upon entering the bathroom hinted at familiarity. It seemed as though he was subtly observing me with an arrogant smirk, although it was hard to confirm from this distance. The venue being a dance club exclusively, I found myself puzzled by his solitary presence. However, I entertained the possibility that, like Linda, his companion might also be attending to some matter in the restroom. Keeping him within my peripheral vision, I awaited her reappearance. When she exchanged glances with him upon returning, my suspicion of their encounter was confirmed. In an instant, my doubts vanished. "Sweetheart, could you fetch me another glass of wine?" Linda settled into an armchair. I was already uneasy and disliked the notion of abandoning Linda while I waited at the bar for the slow bartender to serve me. Eventually, I caught a waitress's eye. When she arrived at our table to take our drink order, I couldn't help but detect a hint of sadness on Linda's face. Immediately, a feeling of unease washed over me, as if the evening was about to take a turn for the worse. My curiosity overpowered me, and I swiveled in my seat to scrutinize the solitary figure in the corner. It was clear he was on his own. Unable to resist my curiosity any longer, I turned to Linda with a query. "Who is that man in the corner?" The question seemed to catch her off guard, and for a moment, fear flashed across her eyes. Her demeanor quickly returned to normal, and she responded, "Which man?" The uneasiness in her tone confirmed my suspicion. "You definitely held his gaze when you went to the bathroom." I countered. She innocently denied it, saying, "Darling, I don't know what you're referring to." Though I hadn't given anyone a second glance, upon receiving our drinks, I observed Linda's eyes darting furtively in his direction. Rotating around, I spotted Mr. Loner making his way towards our table. Strangely, he didn't acknowledge my presence. Instead, he straightaway approached Linda and asked, "Would you care to dance?" As soon as the words tumbled out of my mouth, my voice intensified. "No, thanks," I growled, my irritation evident. My response seemed to provoke a smirk from him. He replied, "I was addressing the lady." I said yes, but the lady is my spouse, and I have the authority to determine whom she can dance with and whom she cannot, I fired back. At that instant, Linda intervened. "Harry," she interjected, her voice steady yet strong, "you're acting impolitely." My response was swift. "Impolite? Are you acquainted with this man?" I felt my query took her aback, but I pressed on, referring to the specific individual. "I'm unsure of your relationship," I stated, "but he approached my wife and asked her to dance without acknowledging mine. Such actions aren't just impolite, they're highly disrespectful." Before Mr. Loner could respond, I cut him off, making it clear that his involvement wasn't needed as I was conversing with my wife. Then I addressed Linda and suggested that if he had asked for my permission to dance together, I might have given it some thought. However, under the circumstances, I flatly refused. "Harry," she snapped, suggesting folly on your part. "I assure you, there's no link between me and that man, and yes, we're wed, but that doesn't mean you own me." She stated, "I'm not your servant, and if I desire to dance with another, then so be it, I shall." I was taken aback by the disrespectful tone she used when addressing me, a behavior I had never observed before. My blood simmered with fury, spoiling any chance of an enjoyable romantic evening with my spouse. Yet, I attempted to suppress my anger. As I struggled to regain composure, she went on, albeit softer in her speech, "Dearest, all I seek is a smidgen of joy." She added, "However, today's our anniversary, and I crave delight as well. Sadly, watching you dance with another was not part of my notion of leisure, especially after requesting you to keep your distance from him." 12 years of shared companionship have given me insight into Linda's emotions, but tonight as our eyes met, her anger was palpable. Yet, she seemed oblivious to the mirror of those feelings on my face. To avoid any discomfort in this gentleman's presence, I proposed, "Dance with him for now, let's discuss later." Linda accepted swiftly, taking the stranger's hand and moving towards the dance floor before my departure was noticed, as I slipped away quietly before the dancing began. 8 blocks from home, my cell phone jolted me from my thoughts. Linda's voice, tinged with remorse, inquired, "Where have you vanished to?" I responded gravely, "I'm on my way home to gather my belongings." "Is there a cause for concern?" There was a brief pause. She then questioned, "Prepare yourself. What are you hinting at?" "Pack a bag," she said cryptically. "Where will you travel to?" I admitted. "I don't know exactly." "All I can say is that I'm departing," I told her. "I can't give you specifics. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm leaving you behind." "This has pushed me beyond my limits, Harry," she declared. "Are you serious? It was merely a dance, and one of insignificance. Is it truly your intention to end our 12-year marriage over a dance, John? The dance itself isn't the issue. Why would you remain married to someone you don't cherish and respect? I haven't been caught in the act, but I suspect infidelity is at play, and that man you danced with seems suspicious. Our glances during our trip to the bathroom were noticeable, and when he approached our table, he treated me disdainfully, as a husband would treat a lover. No, John, you are valuable to me, and I hold you in high regard. There's nothing between me and that gentleman. I would never breach your trust. How such thoughts could even cross my mind is hard to believe. It's been over 2 weeks since we last shared an intimate moment, and even then, your participation was lukewarm. You've become more irritable and short-tempered recently. Don't falsely claim to respect me when today's actions suggest otherwise. You excel at pretending if you're not actually committing adultery." After a pause, there came a response. "Harry, I'm expressing my sincere apologies. The circumstances weren't clear to me earlier. I feel remorseful about my actions tonight. I offer my regrets for creating doubt in your mind regarding my loyalty." There was a brief silence before she resumed speaking. Admittedly, I glanced at him as I walked towards the bathroom. He was quite appealing. It happened unintentionally while we were dancing, but it seemed to me that we both closed our eyes simultaneously. However, I must make it clear that I'm not involved with him romantically. My dear, I implore you to reconsider and return to me so we can resolve this misconception. As I said earlier, I've had enough of this predicament. I warned you about dancing with him, and I meant it. I'm on my way home now and will be gone by the time you arrive. If there is an affair going on, it might be best if you return to your lover and forget about me. Please trust me when I say I'm not involved in an affair. I'm asking for your attention. I'll arrange a taxi for you, but please wait until I get home. It's crucial that we discuss this matter. Rest assured, I will be back home soon." With a desperate tone, she ended the call. Upon reaching our residence, I ascended to pack my belongings. 12 minutes later, I departed the house. A fleeting thought crossed my mind. Would she actually hail a taxi, or would this unsavory individual offer her a ride? To settle the matter, I drove a block away, switched off the headlights, and waited. In about 15 minutes, a yellow cab stopped at the entrance. Exiting the vehicle, Linda rushed into the house. Having observed this, I chose to proceed to the motel. Yet almost instantly, my mobile phone rang. Deciding to ignore further distractions, I turned it off. Although I lacked solid proof of infidelity, my suspicions grew stronger. It appeared quite plausible that Linda and the man she was dancing with were acquainted. Now seemed opportune to engage a private investigator. With me being absent from home, Linda might have sought comfort in her lover's embrace. The following day, I scanned the yellow pages and found a private investigator whose advertisement piqued my interest. Without delay, I visited his office and provided prepayment. Subsequently, I delved into my tasks. Then, Tracy, my assistant, urged me to contact my wife immediately. She claimed that Linda had attempted to call me 20 times, suggesting trouble. I informed Tracy that Linda and I were experiencing difficulties, causing me to ignore her calls. I instructed Tracy to relay this message to Linda when she calls again. Additionally, I requested the lobby receptionist not to allow Linda into the office if she came. I desired to give the detective ample time to discover any lead. From that moment forth, all I could do was wait. Later in the day, our neighbor Andrea phoned me, presumably expecting a discussion about Linda. Reluctantly, I took the call, wishing to avoid appearing rude. "Hello, Harry," Andrea initiated. "Linda shared with me what transpired last night. She's eager to apologize, but alleges you wouldn't speak with her." "Indeed," I affirmed. "I found our interactions challenging." A sorrowful sigh echoed from the phone, indicating her dismay. "This was when she brought up your suspicions about her unfaithfulness. Naturally, you don't truly think that, do you? Over the past couple of months, her actions have grown questionable, and that night only reinforced my misgivings. She maintained they were just dancing, but it wasn't entirely truthful. They exchanged glances even before he joined us at the table, and his behavior towards me was undeniably disrespectful. Linda stood by him unwaveringly and followed suit despite my cautions about the potential pitfalls of associating with such an unpleasant individual. She remained unaffected. It seems highly probable that they are involved in an intimate relationship. Harry, rethink your suspicions. Living beside both of you for quite some time has given me enough insight to say that Linda isn't unfaithful. There's never been any indication of infidelity through strange cars or people near your house. I assure you she knows the impropriety of dancing with that man. Her agitation stems from your prohibition, not a genuine attempt to defy you. Upon careful contemplation, she admitted that you were correct. Trust me, Harry, I've known Linda long enough to vouch for her fidelity. The truth is, she does love you, and deep down, you feel it too. However, recently, I find myself questioning this, as her actions that night didn't seem loving at all. All right, Harry, I implore you, speak with her, please. Communication is key to resolving any issue. I agreed with Andrea, but hoped to delay until the private detective finished his task. Andrea, could you kindly inform her that I'll reach out in a fortnight? I pondered a moment. I have some thoughts to mull over. A sigh echoed again. Very well, Harry, she responded. I'll inform her, but please make contact after that. I give you my word, I pledged, assuring her. Upon our farewell, my mind wandered once more. Andrea and her husband Don were dear friends of ours. The thought of Andrea deceiving me was unimaginable. If Linda was unfaithful, she did so with utmost caution. Over the following fortnight, I grew restless. I reached out to the investigator multiple times, but he had no updates for me. Eventually, he contacted me and requested a meeting in his office. Upon settling into my chair, my anxiety swelled. He slid a weighty paper bag over to me across the desk. With unsteady hands, he passed me an envelope. You can disregard the trivial particulars, he directed. Simply head straight to the summary on page 5. Nervously, I scoured through the pages until I reached my destination. Upon a thorough investigation, our office discovered no proof substantiating Mr. Fremont's allegations about his spouse's infidelity. To state that I was astounded is an understatement. Not knowing how to respond, I felt both relief and disbelief. Although the news was undoubtedly favorable, I couldn't suppress my doubts about its veracity. Turning my eyes to the man seated at the table, I inquired, "Are you 100% certain, Mr. Fremont? For 2 weeks straight, I have been monitoring your wife continually. I meticulously observed her actions within and beyond our home, while also scrutinizing her phone calls. Every time she stepped out, I trailed behind, meticulously reviewing her call logs and credit card bills. In spite of my tireless investigations, there wasn't a shred of proof suggesting an extramarital affair. The burden of doubt evaporated from me, replaced by a tsunami of relief, teetering on the brink of overwhelming my feelings. The detective suggested, like a distraught infant in his workplace, that I return home to my wife and child, acknowledging that joyful conclusions are seldom found in his line of work. Grateful for his counsel, I thanked him and returned to my humble hotel room to ponder. The weekend was consumed by introspection. I meticulously reviewed every detail in my mind, trying to decipher the puzzling situation. On Monday morning, I managed to reach Linda. Her voice quivered and sounded frail as she answered the phone. Greeting her as, "Hi, it's me," I asked if she was okay and noted her poor state of health. After a brief pause, Linda responded by saying my name twice, laced with regret. Harry, I'm sorry I let you down. I don't know what I would do without you." I attempted to maintain composure for Jennifer, but found myself weeping instead. "I'm sorry," I said. "It seems I took our relationship for granted." "You were right," I conceded. "I wished I had informed the man I was with that I was married and stepped away." The sound of Linda sobbing echoed again, cutting through the silence. It struck me then that I hadn't treated her with the respect she deserved, and I couldn't fathom why. In truth, I held her in high regard, and my affection for her was boundless. "Harry," she pleaded, "if you give me another chance, I promise never to make that mistake again." "Never," I replied sternly. Linda then made a request that caught me off guard, given her previous behavior at the club. My silence led her to jump to conclusions. "Are you returning, isn't that correct?" she queried. Without delay, I responded, affirming indeed, and quickly followed up with, "I propose a temporary truce. My deepest desire is to reconcile with my wife, Linda, but the Linda I yearn for is not the one I've lived with recently." To my astonishment, she genuinely agreed to await the return of her cherished husband. Yet, Linda, I remain uncertain. Despite enduring a challenging period marked by hostility, lack of affection, and disregard, I am yet unconvinced. After work, I must retrieve my belongings from the motel, but I will return home tonight. I shared this with her, and there was a momentary silence in response before she spoke. "Harry, I love you," she admitted, her voice laden with regret. "I sincerely apologize for how I acted towards you, and I don't want to lose your presence in my life." Despite her heartfelt entreaties, it was hard for me to dismiss the lingering doubts I held, as my anger had yet to fully subside. In spite of the strong proof contradicting this belief, an unshakable suspicion persisted within me that Linda was associated with the man from the dance hall. As the day wound down, I gathered my belongings and returned home. Jennifer rushed to greet me, almost grabbing me at the doorstep, and inquired anxiously about where I had been. I shared that I'd been away for quite some time, not realizing she was oblivious to our troubles. Linda, who was present too, welcomed me with a warm embrace and showered me with affectionate kisses. I returned her passionate kiss, unable to hide my deep affection for my wife. This incident transpired 2 years ago, and since then, our married life has been extraordinary. Once more, Linda has transformed into the woman I fell in love with, both intimately and beyond. A few months ago, her birthday took me by surprise, as we'd always deemed it a significant occasion, yet only at home did we start celebrating mine. Last night marked our 14th wedding anniversary, and this time Linda orchestrated the entire evening. Upon arriving home from work, she astonished me with theater tickets for my favorite play, The Man from La Mancha. Following that, we embarked on a peaceful journey to the lake shore, walking along the beach. As the moon ascended and a gentle breeze wafted in from the lake, the ambience turned magical. From the depth of my heart, I thank you for the splendid anniversary celebration, I murmured, enveloping her, and she shyly requested, yearning to cuddle close to me. 30 minutes later, we found ourselves within our bedroom's confines, ripping off clothes with fervor. Remarkably, Linda persisted in her determination tonight. I continue to ponder whether she deceived me or not, shrouded in mystery. However, there's no doubt in my mind that I am thankful for having returned home. Although spring was announced on the calendar early, it was only today that Linda stepped out without a winter coat, a significant milestone in Chicago's wintry history. As another winter receded, she savored the bracing aroma of morning dew outside, echoing the calming rhythm of the April rain that had drizzled all night. Her face brightened with a smile as she recalled her peaceful slumber nestled in her husband's embrace, while the rain harmoniously played a soothing symphony. As she strolled to the car, she marveled at the vibrant blue wildflowers adorning our lawn. Joy and admiration surged within her upon the sight. Undeterred by the rigors of winter, these resilient flowers bloomed again come spring. As Linda hummed along with the radio's tune, her heart swelled with happiness en route to a charming cafe. There she was to reunite with Katie, a dearly missed friend, overdue for ages. Incidentally, their sons were of the same age. Jennifer and Katie's boy had crossed paths years ago at a school event, sparking an enduring friendship since. They shared an immediate understanding and have remained close ever since. Upon arrival, Katie claimed a tiny table by the window. Through the glass panes, they exchanged warm greetings as Linda approached the entrance. The bustling cafe was filled with the enticing fragrance of freshly brewed coffee. As Linda stood in line to order a cup of Colombian bliss, she spotted her friend approaching. Katie rose, and the girls simultaneously erupted in laughter, exchanged warm embraces, then resumed their seats. "It's been some time since we last met," Linda observed, eager to reconnect with her cherished friend. This prompted Katie's face to glow with happiness, her manner exuding warmth and joviality. Engrossed in conversation, the friends reminisced, relishing memories and heartily laughing at amusing school-related incidents. Intrigued, they exchanged updates on their children, admiring how quickly they were growing. After an hour of engaging discourse, Katie leaned nearer, whispering conspiratorially while lowering her voice. She asked, "Can you swear to keep a secret?" Linda made a gesture of sealing her lips with a fictitious key, highlighting her solemnity. Concerned, her companion inquired, "What's troubling you?" Katie hesitated initially, yet her excitement was too great to conceal. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but I feel like I need to tell someone," she confessed. Her voice lowered as she spoke further. "I'm in a situation." Katie paused abruptly, looking up from her coffee to meet Linda's eyes. A mischievous half-smile graced her lips, hinting at mystery. "What do you mean by in a situation? Are you cheating?" Katie admitted. "Well, nothing has happened yet, but I'm considering it." She acknowledged the inappropriateness of this connection, but admitted that communicating with him rejuvenated her spirit. His name is Cody, and isn't that a wonderful name? I realize this is wrong, but I have very strong feelings for him, she added, and I fear he might lose interest if I don't take our relationship to the next level. Linda then posed a question, "Are you prepared to risk your marriage for him?" Katie quickly responded, "Absolutely not." Katie expressed, grinning, "I have no plans to wed him. She's engaging in a small romance at the moment. Life, as you know, is like a spice." However, she was resolute in keeping Bruce unaware of her private affair with another individual, fearing his heartbreak upon learning the truth. After a sip from her cup, she added, "Moreover, Cody is married too, so we must be extra cautious." For the last 2 years, Linda has concealed this fact, unwilling to confide in anyone. Feeling compelled to reveal it to her friend, she took a chance. "Katie, do you recall when Harry left me for some time?" "Yes," Linda questioned, "and he ended our relationship, correct?" Linda had been silent on the matter, and she didn't want to involve others. "She's kept it secret all this time and asked you to promise not to reveal it." She paused, waiting for your assurance before continuing. It took Katie a moment to understand her request. "Of course, Linda, I swear to you," she replied. "If the information is exposed, it could undeniably damage her marital relationship," Linda explained. "That's why she doesn't trust others." "But Katie, it's crucial that you hear this before it affects your own marriage," Linda warned, emphasizing caution. As soon as the waitress arrived with a pot of steaming coffee, Linda waited while they were served. "It appears I'm not like many other married women after living together for 12 years, Linda confessed, feeling monotony. Linda mused, finding her daily routine monotonous and unengaging. She pondered, "Where am I going? What is my life becoming?" It appeared she was stuck in a rut without personal direction. At that instant, Katie interjected, acknowledging Linda's sentiments. "I can relate," Katie said. "Many women experience similar feelings." Linda clarified, "It's not that I don't cherish Harry. She adores him deeply, but a lingering sense of something missing persisted. It was as if she was drifting towards a subtle depression. Everything seemed unappealing, even intimacy with Harry. This wasn't anyone's fault, as Harry's vitality noticeably dwindled in their intimate moments. Katie shouldn't have been joyful. Instead, her discontent couldn't be eased. Even school activities transformed into burdensome ordeals, she mentioned. Linda sipped her coffee and eyed Katie, evaluating if her tale had elicited a reaction. Clearly interested, Linda continued with her narrative. "Then I crossed paths with Terry." "Are you suggesting an affair?" Katie inquired. Linda subtly confirmed by barely nodding. "It was more of an emotional bond," she explained, grateful it didn't escalate physically. She sighed, reminiscing about the past. She remembered the instant at the small grocery store on Marshall Avenue when she first spotted him. This man was undeniably alluring, she admitted to Katie. His striking attributes, a rugged charm, sandy blonde hair, and mesmerizing eyes that mirrored Robert Redford's, caught her attention. His towering height, over 6 feet, was conspicuous even under his clothes, indicating a robust physique. I was aware that people were staring at me, yet I couldn't tear my gaze away until he caught mine. Embarrassment seized me when he smiled back, marking the start of our playful flirting. The exchange was exhilarating, bordering on temptation. However, a sudden thought jolted me to consciousness. "I had to go shopping urgently," Linda stated. Traversing the produce section, she opted for tomatoes, but destiny had other plans. At the instant of the unforeseen collision, she faced him head-on. His captivating large blue eyes and dazzling smile greeted her as he affectionately said hello. As Katie listened to Linda narrate her encounter with Terry, she confessed, "I was taken aback when he reached out his hand to me and introduced himself, even though he saw my wedding rings. He appeared unruffled and keen on spending time with me, which I found flattering. As we strolled through the shopping aisles, sharing jokes and chatting amicably, it struck me that this person was interested in me." A story about this encounter reached Katie, who listened attentively as it seemed eerily reminiscent to her. Memories flooded back of how I obtained his phone number and an invitation for lunch. The thought of discarding the business card crossed my mind, along with the idea of a passionate romance that was likely doomed to failure. "Didn't you toss it away?" Katie's friend questioned, curious. Katie flashed a grin to indicate she hadn't thrown it away, instead hiding it in her purse, contemplating the potential consequences. By the time I arrived home, my thoughts were consumed by Terry. As I was putting away groceries, Harry entered, laden with guilt. In a moment of impulse, I lashed out at him when he offered help. Maybe it was a subconscious defense that kicked in. Harry innocently inquired if anything unusual occurred. At that instant, I devised a falsehood. I asserted I was merely exhausted from shopping. In reality, I experienced a wave of exhilaration. Remorseful about her action, Linda acknowledged, deep within, I knew contacting Terry was morally dubious. Aware of my fragility due to the intense emotions I felt, I continually repeated no in my thoughts. However, I could not suppress the urge, eventually locating one of the scarce remaining public phones in the city. I dialed the number scribbled on the card he provided, arranging to meet for lunch the following day. Anxious and excited, Katie patiently waited for her friend to take another sip of coffee before disclosing her experience. She confessed, "Katie, when I went to the restaurant, my feelings were chaotic. I was both horrified and elated simultaneously. Apart from being intensely thrilled, I found myself recalling our conversation when Terry leaned across the table and tenderly grasped my hand. This gesture stirred memories of the unspoiled excitement on my first date. Admit it, the yearning for intimacy with Terry swamped me. However, an inner voice, whether it was morals or fear, held me back from acting. But Terry didn't falter and resorted to seduction strategies. He spoke about how my husband, Harry, fails to acknowledge or appreciate the extraordinary woman I am. I find it hard to believe my own foolishness. I was utterly deceived by his words. Slowly, I developed bitterness towards my own husband. It didn't take Terry long to persuade me that Harry didn't value me enough. "Oh my God, Linda," Katie exclaimed. "It's as if I'm reliving the same situation. That's why I'm sharing all this with you, Katie. I want you to understand the dangers you might face." "Has the man you're dating mentioned Bruce yet?" Linda inquired. "No, not entirely," Katie responded after contemplation. She was then questioned, "Is your spouse cognizant of his wealth or similar matters?" Katie acknowledged, "Indeed, and it's hard not to ponder about it." Linda posed, "Katie, aren't events unfolding around you without your awareness?" Upon Harry's departure from her life, he asserted she had been dissatisfied with him for 2 months. Unbeknownst to her, she exhibited such behavior, which extended even into intimate situations. She struggled to muster interest for a close relationship with a man who, in her eyes, undervalued her, Linda clarified. As she spoke, Katie's comprehension seemed to manifest. "Consider this," Linda urged, pausing. "Can you envision a man like Bruce engaging in infidelity?" Katie swiftly refuted the notion, confident of Bruce's character. "You're correct," Linda affirmed, underscoring her perspective. "Why risk your marriage for someone who could act like that?" As Katie pondered Linda's statement, she was interrupted by Linda, who seamlessly continued her narrative. The following week, we reconvened for lunch. It became increasingly difficult to remain faithful to Harry with each meal. His efforts to tempt me back to the apartment grew more insistent. I detected a note of dissatisfaction in his actions as my excuses accumulated. Aware that another lunch date would likely lead to intimacy, given our third luncheon encounter, I subtly brought up the need to buy a new dress for our upcoming anniversary celebration. I mentioned offhandedly that Harry had proposed the idea of revisiting a dance club we used to frequent. Upon hearing this, Terry saw an opportunity and promptly volunteered to be my dancing partner. I advised her against it since it was our anniversary and my husband might disapprove of me dancing with someone else. Yet, Terry arrogantly insisted that it would teach Harry a lesson. According to him, it would demonstrate to Harry that other men desire me, potentially making him value me more. "How could you think that, Linda? Terry really showed up, didn't he?" Katie inquired. Linda sipped her coffee without looking away. She noticed him as soon as they walked into the room, but she was too timid to speak. Up until then, Linda and Harry had been enjoying themselves. However, Terry approached her and requested a dance, which caused Katie to gasp in surprise. Furthermore, Terry completely ignored Harry. He was extremely rude towards him. Naturally, Harry leaned against the wall, issuing an ultimatum to Linda. Harry informed me that I couldn't dance with him, well aware of my occasional foolishness. Although I was enraged, I stubbornly asserted that I would still dance with him. Harry cautioned me that he wouldn't be around when we returned from the dance floor, but often such remarks are empty, so who takes them seriously? Katie observed Linda's eyes brimming with tears as she narrated her tale. When we began to dance, I informed Terry about his inappropriate actions towards Harry. I questioned him about his rude behavior, and he responded by saying he wanted to assert his dominance over Harry. A wave of anger swept through me on the dance floor. Terry held me close to him, which discomforted me. However, what concerned me more was the thought of Harry observing us and becoming increasingly agitated. I became so engrossed in this concern that I failed to notice when the first dance concluded and the second one started. When the dance eventually ended, I firmly instructed Terry not to ask for another dance from me again. I made it clear that I planned to spend the rest of the night with my spouse. Upon returning to our table, I observed Terry following me with a perplexed and vexed expression. Catching his eye, I inquired as to his purpose. He disclosed his intention to apologize to Harry, yet upon revisiting the table, Harry was absent. Terry occupied Harry's vacant seat, affirming that he would await Harry's return. I held reservations regarding his genuine apology intent. Instead, it seemed more plausible that Terry aimed to persist in antagonizing and aggravating Harry. Pondering the circumstance, I deduced that Terry presumed, by inciting discord between Harry and myself, he could offset his inability to initiate a romantic relationship with me. Undoubtedly, he anticipated I'd seek solace in him, hoping I would lean on him to unburden my emotions. He appeared to believe he could console me throughout the evening. Upon discovering Harry was in the restroom, I instructed Terry to return to his table, yet he hesitated. As the waitress approached, Terry initiated our drink orders. Inquiring if we wished to open another tab, she perplexed me as I inquired about a new account requirement. Explaining that Harry had settled the previous bill before departing, she left me reeling with mixed feelings. Moments of my entire life played out like a montage in front of my eyes, but it was my marriage abruptly ended by his departure that felt most shattered. Linda's sorrow deepened as she shared her own tragic tale, resonating with Katie's experiences. As she sympathized with her friend's pain, her emotions began to well up. A solitary tear slid down Katie's cheek and escaped her eye. Concerned, Linda tried to soothe her, urging against dredging up old wounds. But Katie was insistent on discussing everything, emphasizing its significance. Recalling myself reaching for my phone and contemplating a call to Harry followed swiftly after. Immediately after, Terry embraced me fervently and kissed me intensely, leaving me lightheaded from the intensity. A strong yearning washed over me. Subsequently, we made our way to Terry's car, indulging in passionate intimacy. Post that encounter, I was not my usual self. I phoned Harry, pleading with him to return promptly and retrieve me, feeling his presence was necessary. It was during this call that he confessed his doubts about my infidelity, specifically with Terry. He admitted that he was contemplating leaving and wasn't certain if he would ever return again. At that moment, Linda grabbed a napkin, expressing her astonishment and disbelief. "Goodness gracious, Katie," she said, wiping away tears. This revelation struck me forcefully. It seemed as if a light had been switched on, casting everything in sharp relief. Harry was not indifferent to my attempts. In fact, he exerted every effort to assist me. The blame wasn't his, it was mine. I took him, Jennifer, and the life we built together for granted. Suddenly, the realization struck me. I was jeopardizing my entire marriage for the sake of a detestable individual. Once more, I implored Harry to rescue me, hoping for a chance to address everything. Regrettably, he declined, and I had no choice but to hail a cab. At that moment, Katie, I could not find words to express the intensity of my worry. It seemed as if my marriage was crumbling before my eyes, demolishing all that my family and I had tirelessly constructed. The terror that overcame me was unlike any other I had felt. The following day, I attempted to reach him at his workplace, but he refused to converse with me. His secretary relayed that he had explicitly ordered her not to let me meet with him. Despite my desolation, I sought out Andrea, my neighbor, for a talk. Given Harry's fondness for her and her spouse, I thought she might be able to alter his mindset. Shockingly, she found herself able to speak with him, but he merely stated he needed time to ponder the circumstances, assuring me he'd get in touch within a fortnight. Recognizing that pressuring him would only worsen matters, I opted to grant him the required liberty. These 2 weeks proved to be the most tormenting phase of my life. In Jennifer's company, I endeavored to project strength and merely told her dad wasn't available, yet as soon as she departed, I broke down in tears. I feared I had caused irreversible harm to our bond. Harry's wrath was intense, and I questioned whether he would ever return, particularly if he harbored suspicions of betrayal. "I apologize, Katie," Jennifer said earnestly, "but it remains incredibly hard for me to address this matter." Gathering my composure, she bravely resumed her narrative from where it had ended. As I mentioned earlier, Harry eventually reached out and informed me he was returning home. Katie, that moment made me understand the worth of what I possess and the luck I hold. If I ever lost you, it would be devastating. And as for love, it surpasses mere desire. I deeply cherish Harry, and he feels the same. It's unfathomable to risk such affection. Upon hearing this, Katie was silent, her voice filled with contemplation. If my husband were to leave me, I don't know what I'd do. Have you ever deceived Harry, Linda? No, joking aside, losing him once left a scar that still hurts. Fear haunts me that one day he might discover the truth. But since he returned, I strive to be the best partner, never neglecting our bond again. I show gratitude for what we share daily and express my appreciation for him with all my heart. That's all I could hope for. Katie gave Linda a comforting squeeze of her hand. She expressed gratitude for your shared narrative, feeling you'd prevented a significant error. Thank you, Linda. Their discourse continued for a while, following their prearranged future encounter, before bidding farewell. It dawned on Linda that perhaps she'd spared her friend from a regrettable decision. As she approached her car to kiss her daughter affectionately and thank her mother for the prompt after-school meeting, Jennifer was swiftly growing up towards her 10th birthday. Time seems to fly by. Upon Harry's arrival home from work, Linda warmly embraced her husband, bestowing tender hugs and kisses. Until that day, she hadn't discussed a challenging phase in their marriage. Her conversation with Katie served as a poignant reminder of the extraordinary life they had constructed together with Harry. At night, as Harry slumbered beside her, Linda moved closer and, leaning on an elbow, immersed herself in reminiscences. The creases that marked his face told tales of shared moments. With a gentle caress of fingertips, she traced some newly formed wrinkles. Her heart swelled with admiration and affection for the man beside her, made of flesh and bone. Without uttering a sound, Linda brushed her lips against his, but their kiss was interrupted by Harry's broad grin. Embracing his wife fiercely, he drew her in for a fervent and ardent kiss. "I thought you were asleep," she murmured. Leaning toward him, Linda whispered, "Actually, I was contemplating what gift to give Jennifer for her birthday." Curious, Harry asked, "What do you believe she truly desires?" With a smile, Linda replied, "A little brother or sister, perhaps." The revelation wasn't entirely surprising. They had previously discussed enlarging their family, yet consensus was elusive. A soft smile graced Linda's face as it appeared her husband had resolved this matter. "Well, your birthday is approaching, my dear," he stated. "Shall we start planning?" she proposed. Harry's grin broadened. "You seem to have read my thoughts," he said. Linda felt joy at the prospect of growing their family, but that didn't last long. The following evening, Harry failed to return home after work. He sent Linda a transcript of her conversation with Katie instead. Stunned, Linda swiftly contacted Katie and began berating her, assuming Katie had secretly recorded proof of Linda's infidelity. However, Katie asserted that she was not responsible. Linda attempted to contact Harry, but he didn't answer her call. It turned out that he had been listening to her conversations for the past 2 years with a small recording device concealed in her handbag. 3 years post their divorce, marked by tears and anguish, Linda, now battling severe depression, has lost significant weight and is under observation in a psychiatric facility due to her aggressive outbursts. An instance of anger led her to hurl a wine glass at her daughter during a weekend visit, which resulted in her losing all contact with her child. Meanwhile, Harry, remarried and affectionate towards his daughter, found a new partner who cherishes their child as if she were her own. Regrettably, Linda's thoughtless actions costed her not only the love of her husband, but also her daughter's trust. In story 2, he deliberately avoided my gaze, well aware of the heartache he had just inflicted. His reluctance to meet my eyes was a testament to the intensity of my animosity stemming from our decades-long bond since the 3rd grade and his role as best man at my wedding. Brandon understood me better than anyone else. Attempting to alleviate his guilt, I comforted him. "Calm down, pal. We no longer execute messengers." A hint of doubt crossed my mind when I inquired, "Are you completely certain she didn't see you?" Although I couldn't express my conviction definitively upon entering the room, I immediately sensed her presence and subconsciously moved towards her. Upon seeing her in a passionate kiss with another man, I hastily looked away and sought a quiet corner to retreat. Even though I wasn't sure if she noticed me, she gave no indication of it. Lately, my closest friend disclosed to me the tragic news about my wife's infidelity. He contacted me during work hours and requested an evening meeting for drinks. As soon as I looked at his face, a strong feeling of unease overcame me. Aware of Brandon's habits, I knew it would be pointless to bombard him with questions about his unsettled state. Exhausted and speechless, I could only patiently wait for his revelations after a brief chat over beer. He eventually confessed with apologies. "Rob, unfortunately, I must tell you that Barb has been unfaithful." My initial impulse was to dispute fiercely, but deep down, I knew he spoke the truth due to my long-standing acquaintance with her. Intrigued, I inquired about his knowledge source, which led him to share detailed accounts. As a favor to his sister, he had agreed to a blind date and serendipitously crossed paths. The evening ended disastrously, prompting him to seek stronger drinks after dropping the woman off at her apartment. In an unfamiliar location, he opted to locate the nearest bar. Upon stepping inside, he observed Barb departing the dance floor with a cryptic individual. They moved towards a booth close to the wall, and prior to seating, a surprising spectacle presented itself. Barb was deeply kissing a stranger. Stunned, he settled into a chair, compelled to witness the scenario. For the next hour, he observed as Barb and the man indulged in drinks, danced, and exchanged ardent kisses at the booth. Their bodies intertwined, dancing to the rhythm of the music, and the man's hands roamed freely. When they finally chose to depart, he paused before standing up and covertly trailing them as they exited the bar. At a distance, he saw them get into the rear seat of the car, where Barb's head vanished from sight, and the man reclined, resting his head on the seat. Regardless of his interest, Brandon resisted the urge to approach the car for a closer examination. Over time, he grew suspicious that Barb might be involved in private activities with this man. Later, her head popped up and they switched positions. Moments later, Barb disappeared from view, followed promptly by her feet rising into the air. Feeling uneasy, he departed the parking lot and returned home. For 2 weeks, he relived those events silently within his mind, fearful to disclose the truth. On my journey home, I was pondering the night Brandon shared this revelation, and it struck me that I was occupied in Baltimore addressing a production problem. At midday, I phoned Barb with hopes of speaking with her. To my shock, she mentioned her plans for an evening drink with friends following work. She reassured me that there would be no cause for concern if I called, and she didn't answer. This left me curious as to whether she frequently did this, much like Brandon observed me when I was away from town. If this were true, then she should have done so at least twice a month. Perplexed, I found no indications of unhappiness or distance from Barb towards me, despite our decade-long marriage. I believed we shared a robust and joyful bond. However, it appears my assumptions were misguided. What I was certain about was finding a resolution. To do this, I needed to comprehend the situation independently first. Disclosing Brandon's observations to Barb would only spark an argument with phrases like, "I'm your wife," and "Who should you trust, him or me?" I would have trusted Brandon's account, as he had no incentive to deceive me. If Brandon was deceiving me, it would be simple to uncover the truth. Instead of confronting Barb, I opted to provide her with more independence to expose her true feelings. If she failed to do so, I decided to keep a watchful eye on her. Originally intending to visit our factory in Anniston for an inspection, I delayed the trip to allow Gary to assume control. I organized a week-long vacation with my superior, keeping him updated on the work situation and ensuring he could handle any calls from Barb. Furthermore, I sought Gary's aid, believing he would assist due to his recent experiences with a difficult divorce following his wife's infidelity. I shared a brief account of the circumstances, and he willingly offered help. I procured a disposable phone from a local store, providing its number solely to Gary. On Monday, I bid farewell to Barb, reassuring her I would contact upon hotel check-in, scheduling to reunite in 4 days. Following car parking in a designated lot, I visited the Alamo rental office and collected a medium-sized sedan. Eventually, I found a motel room for 3 nights that met my requirements. Gary phoned at 2 p.m. and informed me he had reserved room 416 at the Marriott Hotel in the city center under my name. Late in the afternoon, I parked my vehicle near Barb's workplace and stealthily trailed her once she concluded her duties. To my astonishment, she swiftly returned to her residence. After granting her some privacy, I dialed her personal phone number and informed her of the location of my apartment. I cautioned her not to disconnect if an unfamiliar man answered and clarified that there had been a miscommunication regarding our booking. It appeared there was a conference in town and accommodations were scarce, thus Gary Williams and I shared the same room. "I'll contact you tomorrow. My regards," I said. I waited until 10:15 p.m., but since she hadn't left her house by then, I chose to go to my motel. The following day at noon, I called her again to remind her that trash collection was scheduled for today, so she wouldn't forget to place the cans on the curb. "I'm dining with the CEO and production managers tonight, so if I call late, I might not disturb your sleep. If you can't reach her by 9 p.m., don't worry about waiting. I love you too." I responded before we parted ways. That night, I chose to follow her once more, expecting a different outcome. Surprisingly, she went straight home and didn't reappear afterwards, making me question my suspicions of her unfaithfulness. With only one night left before my planned departure, she returned to our place and stayed in for the entire evening, a sight I witnessed. The next day over lunch, I maintained silence towards her. Around 5:30 p.m., Gary contacted me and disclosed that Barb had left a message at the front desk. Intrigued by her intentions, I made use of a disposable phone to call her. She simply wished to inform me that she would be spending the night with friends after work and would return home late, so as not to worry if I called but didn't get an answer. Her intention was to forewarn me. She expressed a thoughtful warning, mentioning she'd hail a taxi if she overindulged in alcohol. "I'll be home tomorrow, and we can discuss picking up your vehicle then." Her concern for my well-being is one of the many things that make me cherish you, darling. I love you deeply. The feeling is mutual. I'm excited to see you tomorrow. "Take care of yourself," she said. Upon reaching home from work, I trailed her undetected. She crossed town and finally stopped at the exact bar where Brandon had spotted her earlier. I was unaware of this bar's location before, and I fretted that Barb might discover my actions. To remain hidden, I strategically positioned my car. Recognizing some of the women Barb conversed with, I kept a watchful eye on the entrance, but none arrived. When darkness fell, Barb exited the building, got into her vehicle, and started it up. In expectation of following her, I readied myself, but she navigated the car to a secluded corner at the rear of the parking lot, skillfully parking there in shade. Upon extinguishing the headlights, she remained stationary for a few minutes. Approximately 5 minutes later, A pair of men emerged from the same building. I approached the car and stayed to chat for a while. Eventually, one of them departed in his vehicle. The remaining man continued watching until the car was out of sight. He then moved towards Barb's parked car at the distant corner of the lot. Both men entered the vehicle and moved closer, exchanging passionate kisses. After about 5 minutes of embracing, they both exited the car. Initially, I had been reassuring myself that Brandon's assertions were entirely erroneous, but up to this point, I found myself doubting my beliefs. Deep within me, I harbored faith that Barb was genuinely in love with me and wouldn't betray our bond. Relentlessly, I clung to this conviction, searching for any reasonable explanation for these events. However, the instant I witnessed her intentionally entering the back seat, my denial evaporated from my thoughts as well as my feelings. They resumed their passionate kisses, and Barb slowly sank out of sight. This whole time, I had watched the man gaze at her. An unexplained impulse drove me to witness Barb's actions myself. Merely knowing she was having sex with that man wasn't enough. I yearned for visual proof. Stepping out of the car, I moved stealthily towards Barb's vehicle, ensuring not to alert the man of my presence. As I drew nearer, Barb's moans became discernible. I leaned forward to gain a clearer view of the scene unfolding within the car. Astounded, I found Barb half-dressed, demonstrating an air of urgency. "Quickly, my dear." In that instant, I couldn't suppress my amusement and clapped heartily, shouting, "Bravo, bravo," in admiration for the captivating opening act. Upon seeing me, Barb's complexion drained of color instantly, a sight I had only heard described before now witnessing firsthand. "You delivered an exceptional performance," I declared, momentarily unable to move. In another room, due to pressing personal matters that demanded my attention, while Barb struggled against the man's grasp, I turned and departed towards the rental vehicle. As I was about to exit my parking spot, Barb emerged from the car and hastened toward me. She gestured for me to halt, and I gradually decelerated. Leaving the parking lot, I returned to the motel. The following day, I visited the airport, surrendered the rental vehicle, and retrieved my personal car from the long-term parking facility. Prior to proceeding with my agenda, I entered the office where Marcia, our administrative assistant, notified me that Barb had placed multiple calls and emphasized the importance of reaching her at her workplace without delay following receipt of the messages. Expressing my thanks, I moved to my office where I promptly contacted the firm's legal representative for advice on securing a trustworthy divorce attorney. Upon receiving the referral, I acted swiftly by dialing the provided number. Fortunately, the lawyer was available for a meeting later in the day, and I scheduled an appointment with determination. I took every precaution to safeguard my interests, first canceling all joint credit cards to ensure a clean separation of our financial responsibilities. I also requested the regional newspapers to publish an announcement clearing me of any debts accrued by Barbara and Mercer, previously known as Barnum. Additionally, I ensured the legal department was informed about this significant development. In essence, my proactive measures have provided numerous solutions, thus fortifying my position during these challenging circumstances. I went to the bank and chose to withdraw half of my checks and savings, removing my name from all accounts and leaving them solely in Barb's name. Regrettably, later that day, I received distressing news concerning our marriage finances. Due to our financial predicament, we opted for an equal division of assets. I did not dispute this and proposed going to court if he preferred. He stated his intention to file a lawsuit the following day, and I inquired about obtaining a restraining order to prevent Barb from entering our joint home. He cautioned that obtaining a restraining order might not be straightforward unless there are compelling reasons. To boost my odds, I devised a tale. I disclosed to him that Barb and her lover had menaced me with violence upon discovering them together, fearing they might attempt to injure me for life insurance. He expressed approval, stating such a threat could expedite the case, but cautioned I'd need to present evidence at the hearing or the restraining order may be rescinded. I promised it wouldn't be an issue since I intend to vacate the house swiftly, after which I will withdraw the court order, eliminating the need for me. I inquired about the timeline of this process. ready to appear at the courthouse from its opening. I also mentioned if he was willing to spend $200 to expedite proceedings, we could ensure she received the required papers by 3 p.m. Let's proceed. Instruct him to contact me once Barb is informed and comes back to the office. Marcia had departed, leaving 7 messages from Barb on my desk. Each message implored me to contact her immediately. I hastily balled up the papers and discarded them in the trash. Collapsing into my chair, I meticulously scanned through the advertisements, determined to find an apartment near my workplace. The following day was spent reviewing the ads I'd previously seen. At precisely 1:30, I opted to lease one of the apartments. At 3:10 am, an unforeseen call arrived, informing me that Barb had been made aware of the circumstances. With promptness, I organized a rental truck and purchased a sufficient quantity of packing boxes. Immediately, I embarked on my journey home. At 4 p.m., a courier delivered the notification to Barb, giving me a copy of the restraining order. The courier concluded this eventful day. As per the order, Barb was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me. With some friend's aid, I gathered all my possessions from home and shifted them into a truck. As I was engrossed in this task, Barb unexpectedly pulled up in the driveway. Upon exiting her vehicle, she advanced towards me. In a stern tone, I instructed her to return to her car and vacate the premises, informing her that I would report her for breaching the restraining order. "This is preposterous, Rob. We require dialogue," she persisted. I replied just as firmly, "We aren't going to converse. Given my observations of your actions, it seems crucial to stress the significance of actions over words. Therefore, I implore you to depart. However, prior to your departure, we undoubtedly need to communicate. Barb, I'm allowing you time to speak, but upon careful evaluation, I felt it essential to put safeguards in place." Retrieving my mobile phone, I swiftly dialed the preset emergency police number and started patrolling the house, securing the door as Barb persistently knocked, demanding entry. By chance, a police car pulled up at the entrance. Leveraging this unexpected arrival, I stepped outside and presented the officers with a copy of the court order. Upon examining its details, they promptly informed Barb that legally she must remain 500 feet from home. In a firm tone, she disagreed, asserting her ownership of the house and her right to be there. However, the officer issued a warning for her to depart or risk arrest. A flicker of optimism surfaced in me. I secretly hoped she would persist in her argument, leading to her removal. Yet, to my astonishment, Barb demonstrated some cleverness. In a hurry, she hopped into the car and sped towards the end of the block. Relieved by the prompt appearance of the officer, I thanked him before proceeding to load the truck and depart from the area. Before I went, I checked to make sure Barb wasn't trailing me, ensuring her safety and ease of mind. Upon reaching my new apartment, I initiated the process of setting up home. Over the weekend, I concentrated on making myself at ease before resuming work on Monday. However, my peaceful beginning of the week was suddenly disrupted when Marcia knocked on the door of my office, informing me that Barb was on the phone. Realizing that I had unintentionally placed an undue burden on Marcia by having her handle all the calls and delaying our conversation, I reluctantly decided to take the call. "Yes," I replied, maintaining a neutral tone. Barb implored, "Robbie, speak with me," but I held no urge to converse and responded terse, "I have nothing to share with you, Barb." She insisted, "I require your presence, yet it can't be over the phone. I often get disrupted at work. Would you return home? We could dine and discuss. I no longer possess a home, and I see no rationale for returning to you. If it's possible, propose a location, and we'll meet there. However, I need to clarify that I have little interest in talking, as it would be a waste of my time. But if your work is done, you can visit my office. Everyone should be absent by then. I'll only grant you quarter of an hour." At 5:50, she unexpectedly appeared. Upon her entering my office, I gestured to a seat and said, "Well, Barb, what do you need?" "That's precisely what I don't want," she replied. "I don't seek divorce," I countered. I've always avoided having a partner who socializes intimately with strangers in bars or sleeps with them in parking lots. Regardless, I find myself here. I apologize for putting you through this, Rob, but this incident should not have been the sole cause of our breakup. Can't you understand how trivial this is? Are you actually into other men? And do you suppose I won't care? It isn't multiple men, Rob. It's merely one. I was already in a relationship with Jeff before we met. Coincidentally, our paths crossed during an evening stroll with my workmates, and we've been dating for approximately 3 months now. Wait, is this okay with you? Since you knew him prior to our acquaintance, Rob, I've been dating him for 3 months. Have you observed any modifications in your feelings towards me during this period? Has my affection diminished compared to what it was throughout our marriage? I cherish you, Rob, and I don't have feelings for Jeff. I want to clarify that my encounters with Jeff have no financial repercussions for you. I only spend time with him when you are not present. After speaking with him, I do not come to you. If this is the case, it should not be an issue. I want you to understand that my relationship with Jeff has not undermined our relationship. I am not disrespecting you by addressing you right after talking to Jeff. I don't meet up with him secretly while you are at home. The most significant point, Rob, is that you are my partner. I love you, dear, and I long to grow old only with you. However, our viewpoints differ greatly. Although you assert that you do not treat me disrespectfully, I firmly believe that your involvement in a relationship with another man is a grave disregard for me. It is challenging for me to reconcile your declarations of love for me, your aspirations for a shared future, and viewing me as your partner with the fact that you maintain a close bond with another individual. This contradiction is difficult for me to grasp. If I truly held the role of your loved one, you would not be involved in any capacity with Jeff. Furthermore, it is hard for me to accept your explanation that your involvement with Jeff stems solely from your past history together. If that were the case, I would have to accept the possibility that you may have had intimate relationships with numerous other men prior to our meeting. She clarified that she slept with Jeff because he is an exceptional lover. I feel the explanation given sheds clarity on the matter and offers some kind of rationale. To preserve our marriage, I must be truthful with you, even if it causes pain. I talk to Jeff because he provides something that you don't. Our intimate moments together are not fulfilling for me. Meetings on Tuesdays and Saturdays have become routine, lacking passion. After a predictable encounter, you drift off to sleep quickly. I yearn for something more intense. During an unexpected encounter with friends, I met Jeff, who satisfied me multiple times in one night. I questioned if he still retained that ability. Upon his showing interest, I agreed to meet him at a motel. Our encounters were strictly physical and devoid of emotion. He provided what you lacked, but it was all about the physical aspect. My love for you has not wavered in the least. If given the choice between a life with you and intimacy or Jeff and intense intimacy, I would choose you. I appreciate your understanding. Let me ask you something. Did I ever initiate discussing our lack of intimate satisfaction? You've never made any complaints, so how was I supposed to know about it? If I served you the same meal every night for a week and you grew tired of it, would you tell me about it? We have the freedom to pursue relationships, but discussing crucial matters like my sex life with you is off limits. Since communication is restricted, I will find it elsewhere. It's heartening that if given a choice, you would still choose me over Jeff. However, my decision has been made, and you do not have a vote in this matter. With the possibility of staying with an unfaithful partner or ending our marriage, I chose divorce. I gave you the chance to express your feelings, but now our relationship is at an end. I politely ask for no further contact with me, as any communication will be handled through my lawyer. Please leave. Rob, think again. I truly love you, my dear. As tears flowed down her face, Barb got up and left without another word. A week has passed since our divorce became official, and I haven't spoken to Barb in half a year. Yet, I long for her deeply. The affection I feel for her remains potent, and I am convinced it will persist forever. Pondering the past, I can't help but speculate if our story might have had a different ending if I had simply driven off when I spotted Barb getting into the back seat of Jeff's car that fateful day. Maybe, just maybe, if I had revealed this encounter upon her return home, we could have salvaged our relationship. Regrettably, I opted to stay, and watching her actions in the back seat left me no other option but to move on. The 17th of May was an insignificant day, not a special occasion like our anniversary or our first meeting. It was merely an ordinary Tuesday, which is why I selected it for this narrative. After 12 years of marriage with Lisa, our bond had grown dull and monotonous. Yet, my affection for her remained unwavering, especially towards her children whom I adored. Lately, I've observed a lack of that captivating glow in her eyes during intimate moments. Being hopelessly romantic, I made plans for an extraordinary evening for her. During work hours on Monday, I contacted three exceptionally attractive single colleagues, Katie, Cheryl, and Karen, discussing the prospect of writing the script for their ideal romantic night. By midnight, they were eager to share their fantasies of a trip to the enchanting city of Paris. I encouraged them not to oversimplify romance by suggesting a homebound or hotel stay in the city center. By midday, they returned with suggestions tailored to my budgetary limitations, for which I expressed appreciation and rewarded them with a scrumptious meal. Post-lunch, we started brainstorming our strategies with equal levels of excitement. Their exuberance mirrored mine, as shown by their jubilant expressions. I was cautioned not to disappoint since there was a wager concerning my evening's events. Intending to disprove them, I opted for a day off on Wednesday to complete everything before my wife, Lisa, arrived home. Typically, I returned at 6, but Lisa was always prompt, arriving by 3:30 to greet our children from school. To persuade her on Tuesday evening, I informed Lisa that my parents would be taking the children for dinner and a show on Wednesday, thus not returning until 8 in the evening. The children were additionally thrilled when I hinted at a surprise for their mother. Confirmed. The children will stay overnight at their grandparents', allowing my parents to dote on them as usual. At 11:30 am on Wednesday, I departed work, gripping my checklist tightly in hand. With some free time ahead and the kids safe with Mom, I opted for a trip to the store. Carefully selecting a sweet postcard, a tasty box of chocolates, and her preferred wine was part of my mission. The girls provided me with a detailed list of tasks, such as setting an appropriate ambience and playing suitable music. Upon visiting the florist, I observed a perplexed expression on her face while making an uncommon request for 2 pounds of rose petals. However, once I explained my intentions, her bewilderment swiftly vanished. "You truly cherish your wife to do such a thing," she said, implying there was love in my gesture. With crimson rose petals still clutched, I ventured to reserve a table for 8 at Lisa's cherished steakhouse, planning our upcoming evening. By 8 p.m., I wanted to be rejuvenated in case we chose to postpone dinner. I ensured that our fridge held delectable steaks, waiting to grill on the patio. Upon returning home, everything slotted perfectly into place. I silently parked the car at the rear of the house and transported all necessities into the kitchen. "Let's get this done," I murmured to myself, acknowledging the hour left for preparation. Over the following hour, I strategically chilled wine bottles, aesthetically displayed rose petals in a large heart formation on the bed, and used chocolate pieces to spell out sincere words, "I love you," centrally. To every detail, I filled the bathtub with warm water, scattering remaining rose petals for an enchanting view. Eventually, I positioned a wine bottle inside an ice bucket on my bedside, while neatly placing the postcard next to the reading lamp on hers. Adjusting the overhead light's brightness, I cultivated a warm ambience prior to uncorking the wine and filling 2 glasses. Positioning our CD player on the dresser, I intended to switch it on once she stepped into the bedroom, following her shower, shave, and disrobing. The scene was set. At 3:20 precisely, I heard a car's approach. A wave of excitement washed over me. Closing the bedroom door, I sat at the foot of the bed, bare, cradling glasses of wine, eagerly waiting for her to ascend the stairs. As I listened, muffled giggles and booming footsteps akin to horse hooves grew louder, forewarning her entry into the room. To my dismay, it was Lisa accompanied by Rick. The mere mention of them being together sent shivers down my spine. Have you ever experienced the agonizing stretch of 475 seconds? It feels like an eternity, particularly when eyes lock. In these transient moments, it seems as though time groans with exhaustion, or rather, shatters into three heart-wrenching beats. That's ample time to obliterate any remnants of romance and disrupt a marriage. When Lisa suddenly barged into our bedroom, her mind took only 5 seconds to comprehend that something had been irreversibly altered. Upon seeing the shirt hanging limply on her, unbuttoned, and the bra discarded, a wave of understanding washed over her mind. In just 2 brief moments, she exclaimed, "My God!" But it took another painfully long minute and 25 seconds to accept the brutal truth. Her world was collapsing. This catastrophic occurrence could easily be considered a strong contender for the swiftest dismantling of a marriage, if not for second place in despair. In a flash, Rick sprinted backwards towards the entrance, vanishing in roughly 45 seconds. I observed tears trickling down Lisa's cheeks as she crumpled to her knees. Swiftly, I drained both glasses on the bed and prepared myself near the closet. Throughout this ordeal, I paid close attention as Lisa apologized and professed her heartfelt feelings for me. It took approximately 5 minutes to get ready, during which I made it clear to her that she should depart before my arrival. Descending the stairs, I reached my car and drove off towards a place offering solace and a drink. This is how I arrived at Tony's, consuming my fourth beer. As I pondered my next steps, I was unsure of what course to take. Upon returning home at 6:30, I walked into a tranquil abode with no signs of activity. Strangely, the front door remained unlocked and Lisa's vehicle, oddly enough, was nowhere to be found in the driveway. After visiting the restroom downstairs, I proceeded to our bedroom. Upon entering, I observed no changes since my departure. The bathtub in the garden still ran water, while the wine, postcard, and chocolates remained untouched. Lisa's closet gaped open, as did several drawers. Sitting on the bed, I struggled to focus, my thoughts disrupted by the unexpected ring of my mobile phone. I opted not to answer, choosing silence due to my reluctance to converse at that moment. The following morning, I recalled needing a new mattress for the guest room. After packing up, I headed to work, but en route, I appeared haggard and spent like a zombie. Enstrolled all three girls with jubilant shrieks. Recognizing my disarray, they humorously speculated about a stormy night. Karen mockingly joked and needled her friends, to which I confessed that Lisa was indeed unfaithful to me. Cheryl pondered over Katie's response, causing her to question mine. "Endure and look after your kids," I whispered, praying you keep this confidential. "I dread the laughter in the office," I implored. They apologized and promised assistance if conversation was necessary. Grateful for their understanding, I shut the office door. By 9:30 am, I had closed or altered numerous financial accounts like bank accounts, credit cards, life insurance policies, and retirement funds. Subsequently, I contacted my parents and informed them about Lisa and my predicament. Politely, I requested their aid in caring for our children until the weekend. Though saddened, they readily granted assistance. After reviewing my phone messages, I discarded 20 from Lisa. Furthermore, the lawyer suggested a reliable attorney who, if available, quoted reasonable fees. I arranged a meeting for Friday morning. 2 hours with a divorce lawyer made it clear my limited options boiled down to a he said, she said situation. It turns out that Lisa and Rick did nothing when I found them, leaving me unable to evict her since the house is jointly owned. What enraged me was the prospect of her gaining custody of the kids, the home, and almost half of my post-tax income. I felt utterly betrayed and powerless. He suggested counseling or a 90-day hiatus before taking action. Despite your choice, you'll likely have to pay child support for at least 8 years, plus the mortgage. Patience is key, as minimizing losses seems to be the best strategy. I believe it's a good idea for you to vacate a spare room and arrange a cozy environment for your children, he suggested. Adhering to his advice, I departed early and transferred all my possessions into the spare room. I purchased a new bed and discarded the old one on the curbside. Although Lisa wasn't responding to calls, I eagerly anticipated her potential visit to the house. To prepare for this, I arranged to pick up the children from work on Friday and take them out for pizza. They thoroughly enjoyed it and were excited about coming home around 8:30 p.m. Eventually, Lisa arrived. The kids flocked to her, but she consistently communicated with me. Over time, the children retired to their rooms, and by 10 p.m., I retreated to the guest room. Lisa suggested discussing later, but I refused, stating that my current feelings weren't conducive. Impassively, I proposed discussing things tomorrow, following which I securely shut and fastened the door. From afar, a discontented utterance slipped from her as she inspected the debris of what was once our communal bedroom. The rustle of linens from the bed and other noises suggested her attempt to tidy up the room. On Saturday morning, my focus drifted towards a forgotten postcard, scattered rose petals, and discarded chocolates in the trash, along with an empty wine bottle. Meanwhile, our children were relishing breakfast, attending to their routine Saturday tasks, socializing, and playing football. Uninterested in food, I elected to prepare coffee instead. As I finished my initial cup, Lisa emerged downstairs. I then opted for another round of coffee, picked up the newspaper, and stepped outside onto the terrace. With red-rimmed, tearful eyes, Lisa admitted that our conversation was inevitable. Curious, I sought clarification from her, aiming to understand the events of Wednesday better. Unable to restrain myself, I had to ask how long she'd been involved with Rick romantically. Through her tears, Lisa implored me, insisting that it had only occurred on 2 occasions. "I find it hard to trust you," I declared, adding, "for your knowledge, you no longer have the right to call me endearments like darling. We'll continue living together due to our children until I decide what's best for us both," I stated. "It seems you've made up your mind," she retorted before disappearing into the house. In rage, I ripped the newspaper and finished my coffee. The ensuing 2 weeks at work were challenging, but thankfully not as harrowing as my personal life. After a coworker gossiped, I noticed sympathetic looks from female colleagues whenever I walked by. My supervisor inquired about a potential vacation, yet I assured him I was managing well and required the job for my mental health. From the outset, my kids sensed an issue and inquired if it was their fault. "Don't fret, kids," I comforted them. "Your grandma and I are facing a challenging phase, but things will improve." However, deep inside, I knew that the situation wasn't ideal. Lisa attempted to initiate conversation and even flirted with me at one point, but any feelings I had for her were long gone. My mood significantly worsened when Cheryl unexpectedly entered my office on Thursday just before closing. "Gather your coat. We're leaving," she declared. I protested, but she cut me off. "You seem not to grasp the circumstances. This isn't a suggestion. Collect your coat instantly." "We're leaving," she reiterated. At our destination, Cheryl and I encountered two more members of the notable trio in a quiet corner at Anthony's restaurant. After ordering drinks, Cheryl turned to me and said, "You truly need a diversion, kid. For the past fortnight, you've been like an unresponsive spirit, and despite everyone rallying behind you, your actions could lead to grave consequences unless you find a way to regain control." I countered with, "I have my reasons for this behavior, so just leave me be." Karen replied in confusion, "Leave you alone? You're not addressing Lisa." I inquired, "What is it that you want from me? Will you continue dwelling on self-pity, or are you ready to progress?" To which I admitted, "I'm merely lost and unsure of the path ahead or where to begin." Cheryl proposed, gesturing for the waiter, "Let's have something to eat first, and then we'll sort things out. You've been cohabiting with Lisa while Rick lives contentedly with his family, a situation that transpired due to the dissolution of our marriage," Cheryl pointed out resolutely. "It's past time for you to reclaim your life." As the night wore on, I gradually felt better, and they were right. I had to act. I couldn't prolong this any longer. It was causing me immense distress. Upon my arrival home, Lisa inquired about my whereabouts. "Why do you even ask?" I snapped as she retreated to her bedroom, her cheeks wet with tears. The following day, I met with my lawyer, Randy. Hadn't you intended to wait for the divorce? He queried. Yes, but now I wish to file a lawsuit against the company Rick and Lisa work for and also sue Rick personally for the destruction of my marriage, I disclosed. You must comprehend that without substantial evidence, your case might not prevail, Randy cautioned me. Understanding your points, it's plausible that their company, being publicly traded, might shy away from negative publicity due to recent corporate misconduct reports. Managers typically adhere to regular working hours and are often bound by corporate bylaws prohibiting romantic relationships between married employees during work hours, especially those under their supervision. Randy suggested a few days for sorting things out and completing paperwork, promising to keep me informed about the implementation of the plan. For the following 3 days, I managed to maintain my usual composed attitude at work while enjoying camaraderie with colleagues. Spending quality time with children was enjoyable, and it was refreshing to meet Lisa again, providing her some comfort. On Thursday, Randy reached out and shared that his company was served with papers, but I requested him to delay Rick's documentation until we settled issues regarding their company. The following Tuesday, Randy and I found ourselves in a conference room with the CEO and his manager. Upon examining the documents, the manager pointed out the absence of records concerning the alleged incident. Following his comments on the unfounded accusations, he appeared surprised as I rose abruptly and left. It seems we're heading for a court hearing, I stated, rising from my seat. Maintaining composure, I continued, we will gather testimonies from all office staff. I ponder over how many of them were privy to the circumstances. I confidently told them, all I require is locating a pair who are prepared to voice their opinions. Considering the potential repercussions for managers, I inquired, how many do you reckon will defend Rick when their own interests are at play? Wishing them success, I calmly stated, gentlemen, Randy and I are departing. On Wednesday, while at my desk, Randy phoned me, expressing a wish to resolve the current predicament, labeling it a means to erase the situation. I disclosed that I had demanded $250,000, including attorney's fees, and proposed both parties be moved to different state offices. I believed this would address all concerns. I instructed Randy to communicate that the offer remained valid until Thursday afternoon, following which we would act accordingly. Later in the day, Randy contacted me again. He disclosed they had agreed to commissions and transfers, but were only offering $50,000 as remuneration. Cease negotiations and communicate to them that the present price is $300,000. Should they propose another bid, the price will escalate to $400,000, hopefully concluding the talks. I directed Randy to perform this task. On Thursday at 3:30 p.m., Randy phoned me and shared that my offer was accepted. He guaranteed that the required documents would be prepared for my signature by 5 p.m. as agreed. At 4:30 p.m., a package arrived at my office. The courier stated he was expected, as reported by the secretary. After thoroughly reviewing the documents and the invoice attached, I signed them and returned them, informing her of my departure for the rest of the day. As I left the office, headed home, I contacted Randy again and delivered instructions for Rick to meet him in the evening. Great contentment washed over me at the prospect of receiving justice. I was ready to bid farewell to this part of my existence. Upon entering the house, I asked everyone present to grab their coats as we were having dinner that night. Lisa appeared unfazed by my request, seemingly impervious to my words. Lisa, come and join us, I implored, prompting a radiant smile to bloom across her face as she swiftly fetched her coat. Our conversation and laughter filled the dinner hours, much like it has for the past 12 years. Life seemed to regain its optimistic hue, albeit incompletely. Afterward, all family members expressed gratitude for the enjoyable evening before retiring to their respective rooms. As Lisa approached me, she tenderly kissed my cheek, expressing her appreciation for the night's events. 1. Her words held great significance for me, and I promised her a substantial discussion tomorrow night, suggesting she take some rest beforehand. Upon Lisa's abrupt entrance, she couldn't help but angrily exclaim, "You vile person," I replied calmly. "Did you know what was going to happen tonight?" I responded. "Not exactly, Lisa, but I had a hunch. Inquiring further, I asked, "So, about that job offer you mentioned?" She retorted in a frustrated tone, "It seems to be in Tenafly, New Jersey, a place I'm not familiar with. They've made it clear they no longer require my services either in New Jersey or else I lose my job." Steeling herself, she stated, "I made it known that I wouldn't accept transfer there." As she recounted the events, tears streamed down her face. "They handed me severance pay abruptly and only gave me 20 cold minutes to clean up," she lamented. She sighed, having spent 8 years with this company before being promptly shown the door. Inquisitiveness drove her to ask about our acquaintance Rick's whereabouts. To her astonishment, she learned that he was being moved to Flint, Michigan. Uttering those words, she likened it to the frigid regions of the Northeast. I couldn't help but comment, "This turn of events couldn't have happened to a more fitting individual," a wicked smirk playing on my lips. "Lisa," I said gravely, "I must share with you what lies ahead for us in this new chapter. Why the betrayal? In our private encounters over the past months, has your mind been occupied with thoughts of Rick or me? How frequently have you strayed from our relationship recently? What number of affairs outside marriage have you engaged in?" Inquired if her sentiments towards me remained genuine, I shared details of our arranged meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow and mentioned a potential session with a marriage counselor at 10 on Saturday morning, should things proceed smoothly. Lisa remained quiet, her tears flowing as she contemplated my questions. Understanding her readiness, I proposed to address her questions immediately, but preferred to wait until the next day. I clarified that I no longer trust her and wish to restart our relationship without deception, assuming she consents. I was unsatisfied with her response. In my mind, she's already left. Can I count on her? Most certainly not. Do I intend to remain in this relationship? A definite conclusion has yet to be reached, but we are making efforts to resolve our issues. The hardest part is that we haven't experienced intimacy for the past 5 months, and it is this connection I long for. We engage in intimacy roughly 1 or 2 times a week for stress relief, yet it pales in comparison. Rick relocated to Flint, Michigan last year. In Florida, I dispatched him a Christmas card with the message, "I'm happy you're not here." Coincidentally, his spouse and children have already settled there. Amazingly, the inviting southern environment appears to have won over Rick's unfaithful husband. Incredibly, and Lisa and I still reside in the same house. Although we are married, we sleep in separate rooms. We occasionally share intimate moments, but immediately afterwards, I send her to her room. I can't stand sleeping in the same bed with my adulterous wife. Furthermore, I initiated an affair with a stunning woman, which Lisa has observed without comment. Regrettably, I inflict pain on her, but she deserves it. And until I completely forgive Lisa, she will be aware that I am involved with other women, thereby causing her distress.